Each year in the land of the free, there are approximately 140 people, mostly men, that are falsely accused. It is estimated that over 20,000 men are falsely convicted, serving time in prison today. This is odd for a nation that teaches its young children in the Pledge of Allegiance that liberty and justice are for all. Boys grew up draping themselves in the flag and in war defending the honor of that flag for a country that can take away the belief in one fell swoop. These are the stories of the men that have been in prison because a wife, a girlfriend, or a stranger lied on them and had the police believe it. These are the men who have had their cases tried in the court of public opinion by angry mobs long before the courts sided with the actual perpetrator of the crime. Yes, these are the cases where justice was not only blind, but deaf to the actual facts of the case presented. These are the cases that you won't readily see strewn across the news. The same news that made them famous when they falsely accused them at the behest of the women who remained free, even though they broke the law when they testified dishonestly against these men. This is the true story of Joseph Roberts, a man falsely accused of sexual harassment and was denied due process of law at the same university of Savannah, Georgia, where the girl accused him. Joseph, like most American men who find themselves thrust into these painful situations, finds that they have no more legal rights than a slave in America in the early 1800s. They are considered guilty until they are proven innocent. And even when they are, no one cares. They are usually railroaded by the media and the court of public opinion mobs into fearing for their lives and their livelihood. Their friends, family members, girlfriends, spouses abandon them in many cases. In other instances, they feel that all is lost and they consider harming themselves, which is exactly what Joseph Roberts considered doing in this particular case. Now, Joseph Roberts, who was an ex-Navy sailor, would become the first member of his family now in his entire lineage to receive a college diploma. Not just any college diploma. The University of Savannah, Georgia was established as Georgia's state industrial college for colored youth 25 years after Abraham Lincoln's assassination in 1890. Now, so it was that when Joseph Roberts entered the university, that he was not looking back on history as much as he was looking forward to the future possibilities. Now, that was until one fate-filled morning when he received an email from campus administrators that would change his dreams of graduating forever. And in many cases, it happens in an instant. Now, in Joseph's own words, he says, an email came from the officers of student affairs saying, "You are hereby summarily suspended, and if you step foot on campus, you get the threat of expulsion and of arrest." Now, as if this was not a big enough kick in the gut, a couple of minutes after he received that email, there was a campus-wide email alert given in the Amber Alert style with Joseph's picture in the style of mugshot. They saw him now as a criminal. Now, the caption under that photo read, "If you see me, immediately report to the public safety." Now, in an instant, Joseph had become a marked man on campus. Robert said the email was sent after two students filed complaints, which Robert called false allegations of verbal and online sexual harassment. Verbal and online sexual harassment never happened. Joseph Roberts was suspended the same day the complaint was made against him. Now, at the time of the complaint, he had no more idea who had made these baseless claims, nor would administrators give him that particular information. Now, in this country, when you're accused of something, you're given information. Now, Robert says the school administrators never reached out to him, interviewed him, or asked him what happened before the email went out, and that he was immediately found guilty. He says just off of the mere accusation he was done. Done, he said. So Roberts said he and other men like him have been denied due process on college campuses because of the Title IX program. Now, the Title IX program is the most commonly used name for the federal civil rights law in the United States of America that was passed as part of the Education Amendments of 1972. It prohibits sex-based discrimination in any school or in any other education program that receives funding from the federal government. That's the whole deal of Title IX. Now, in its original form, it was meant to improve equality in education, strengthen women's sports programs, and provide requirements for how schools respond to allegations of sexual misconduct towards students. Now, that was whether it was male or female. Now, the Obama administration, a couple of presidents back, issued guidance documents designed to toughen the rules protecting students against sexual assault and harassment under Title IX. Now, many survivors organizations celebrated this move by the Obama administration. But controversial groups have argued that those Obama-era guidelines have caused an overcorrection of the past, making schools quick to accept allegations of sexual misconduct and sometimes unfairly punish the accused men without due recourse. Even in America, you have due process of law, not due process of guilt. Now, Mr. Roberts, with nowhere to turn for support, a man without a country, if you will, decided to harm himself after hitting rock bottom. On the day he decided to take his own life, in his own words, he says, "I woke up not responsive, surrounded by EMTs and firefighters with an empty bottle of alcohol and of pills."
You're watching M&N, the Men's Channel.
Although Title IX has been in effect for nearly 50 years, the regulation for schools responding to allegations of sexual misconduct was strengthened under President Barack Obama. He promised strict enforcement of Title IX's guidance on how to handle claims of sexual misconduct. Now, but after Secretary of Education Betsy Devos and a new administration entered office, she scrapped the Obama-era changes completely. Now, as part of a series of listening sessions that she had on Title IX guidelines on sexual harassment on college campuses, Devos met with members of sexual assault survivors groups, as well as advocates for the accused. So you have to listen to both sides, not just one. There's been a lot of men that have been falsely accused on campuses. Now, he says, "I can talk until I'm blue in the face about all the stories I've heard, but nobody really responds until you can see somebody testify or until you can see them tell their story. It's very easy to disregard." Now, Joseph Roberts was one of the students Garrett brought along to the session to share his story with the Education Secretary. Now, at that meeting, Roberts made this statement. He said, and I quote, "Title IX is supposed to protect students, and if you are accused, you're supposed to be given certain rights that I just wasn't given." Now, acting as his own attorney, Roberts sued the university, but the case was dismissed. Now, however, he completed his degree online and is now enrolled in California Law School, which was his entire intent to start, not to have a woman derail his dreams. He said it was a big deal to be able to tell Devos his story, the Education Secretary, not just because of the situation, just because of where I was at in the stage of my recovery from this. Now, the only thing I could do, he said, was to present my story. I just hope and pray that she listens. And she did. 2 weeks after the session, Devos announced those rollbacks to the Obama administration implements of the Title IX guidelines, which was great. Now, further proposed changes, which were leaked to the media, would not only limit liability at universities, but would require victims to present stronger evidence that a sexual assault actually occurred. You need proof that the assault actually occurred, not just say so. Now, the Department of Education released new regulations that establish some fairness on how these delicate matters are investigated on university campuses. Now, while some falsely claims the changes to Title IX are controversial or unfair to accusers, those who read the new rules will be shocked that these steps needed to be spelled out. Now, the provisions in the final rule include basic obligations, and these are rules from the road that must be followed. So, number one, A college must actually investigate allegations of sexual assault or harassment. That goes without saying. Number 2, the school must investigate in a timely manner, not after a while, in a timely manner. Now, accused students in number 3 cannot be suspended or expelled unless they're found guilty, just like in a court of law. 4, all evidence, and not just evidence that fits the school's preferred narrative, must be disclosed. Easy, right? Number 5, investigations cannot be conducted by administrators who have a conflict of interest. So if you feel for the girl, not good enough. 6, an alleged victim's rights and privacy, including medical records, must be protected. And 7, an alleged victim must be allowed to take steps to avoid contact with the accused, such as class schedules or housing reassignments, even if they haven't pressed criminal charges as of yet. 8, and that both parties must be allowed to appeal the administration's decision. So even if they want to throw the kid out, he needs to be able to make an appeal, because maybe he didn't do it. Now, Mr. Joseph Roberts said, "I cannot imagine the pain and fear that result from being sexually assaulted." He understands women's point of view. "But I do know what it's like to be traumatized and feel like my life has been destroyed. Because that's what this experience did to me," he said. "I'm not alone." Now, to date, more than 150 lawsuits filed against universities over Title IX proceedings have ruled in favor of the accused students. Last year, the first ever prospective class action lawsuit was filed against Michigan State University by a student accused of sexual assault. Now, if successful, it could reverse Title IX's cases that did not offer essential due process protection. When you go onto a college campus, it does not take you out of the United States. You have due process of law. Now, he says, "After I was basically accused of harassment and robbed of my degree, I sued the university and the state's Board of Regents in April of 2015. Now, unfortunately," he says, "the case was dismissed, but the university offered me an agreement that allowed me to finish my degree through online classes only. Now, though I should have graduated with my class in 2013, I was able to receive my diploma through the mail," he said, in December of 2017. Now, this experience, he said, "inspired me to continue to follow my legal dreams. Despite the unfairness that I experienced, I still believe in justice," he said, "for both sexual assault and harassment victims and the falsely accused." He says, "And I know the recent changes to the Title IX will help both parties." Now, Joseph Roberts is a law student at Golden State University School of Law. He is the Trust and Belief Coordinator at Stop Abuse in Violent Environments. Now, this is the organization called SAVE. Now, an organization dedicated to fairness and due process on campus. We hope to see you next time. If you know of a story like this, make sure you leave it in the comments and tell us what you feel about this particular story. We'll see you again next time.